This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this StockBox interview.
Well, today I'm joined by Rory Harding, Chief Executive of Arkle Resources. Rory, it's great to have you back on. How are you doing?
Yeah, good to be here. Good morning. Yeah, I'm wonderful, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, so a few things to discuss. First of all, a few weeks ago now, you kicked off your uranium exploration in Namibia. Can you give us a bit of an update on how things are going on the ground?
Yes, so we're progressing very quickly. As announced, we've begun a 13,000 line kilometer airborne geophysical survey, which is radiometrics and magnetics. That's progressing very well. We're probably about 90% of the way through that now, so should close that program off in the coming days. We've had some boots on the ground doing some ground geophysics, horizontal loop electromagnetics, which is just completed, and we are also out doing some bit of mapping and some collar surveys. So all of that should be wrapped up in the next week or so, and then we'll have a period of processing that data, which should be mid-April. Hopefully we get those results back. Following that, we'll do a detailed mapping and sampling program, and hopefully sooner rather than later generate some good drill targets. So we're very excited about that. We've really got on with work very, very quickly, and looking forward to the next phase and those results in due course.
Definitely. So drilling is the ultimate goal here. Is that perhaps planned for later in the year?
That's the plan. There's always limitations with geophysics in terms of what they're great tools that guide the drilling, that guide the further processes, but they don't give you all the answers. So a necessary step in the exploration program, but the primary goal is to get drilling as soon as possible.
Absolutely. It's been quite remarkable how quickly you've moved forward with this. Is that a symptom of Namibia being a supportive operating jurisdiction, or is it perhaps more the licenses being quite advanced in the first place?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great country to operate. As I've said before, you've got really good infrastructure, easy to navigate terrain, good roads, European standard roads, and a very competent workforce there. On top of that, we have an incredibly supportive and strong local partner and team and geologists who are very well connected in Namibia and many decades of operational experience. So that's where we've managed to. We pride ourselves on a company that gets stuff done on the ground, and that's why we've shown we can get going so quickly and run a very smooth exploration program.
Of course, yeah, and obviously Arkle's. There's not too many ways to get exposure to uranium in such a way on the London market, but it's obviously an interesting time for the sector. Are you seeing a lot of interest in the company as the outlook for uranium becomes increasingly positive?
Yeah, we're convinced that we are the beginning of a very long nuclear expansion cycle. You've got governments around the world very supportive now of nuclear policy, extension of life of nuclear reactors, new reactors. You've got the digital trade, the AI trade with data centers, and I think also what's happened in the last couple of weeks since we've last spoken in Iran, etc., with showing that the vulnerability to fossil fuels and particularly gas, given the recent news in the last 48 hours out of Qatar, how important that nuclear power will be into the future in terms of national security, base load reliable power, and so we think that there's a long way to run for nuclear. And on the pricing front, a break in the structure with supply and demand and mine development, which we believe will lead to a large deficit of uranium supply and a price movement upwards in due course. You see the long-term contract price moving above spot price now. And also, if you look at some of the announcements in terms of long-term contracting from the likes of Cameco, some of the big utilities, they're putting price ceilings on these contracts now, in the region of $150 a pound, which shows you the sort of direction they see some of the prices going. So we're very enthusiastic. We're one of a very small group of uranium explorers on the London market, and we think we're a great way for investors to play the uranium trade right now.
Absolutely. So everything's moving forward nicely there. But your latest update relates to the Stonepark zinc project in Ireland, where your JV partner, Group 11, has announced a significant expansion in the scope of its drilling. We'll speak about that in a second, but can you quickly just bring us up to speed on Stonepark and the opportunity there first?
Yes, so Stonepark is a lead zinc project. It was originally a joint venture with Teck. Group 11 bought that interest. We have a resource there of over 5 million tons at around 11% lead zinc. It sits directly west of Glencore's Palace Green deposit, which is a 45 million ton, very large, one of the world's largest undeveloped deposits. And we essentially are the western limb of that, with the mineralization sitting in that resource within 3 pods. Interesting that our grade, we're shallower there with that resource, and also the grade is slightly higher than what Glencore have at Palace Green. But in terms of the drill program announced by Group 11, who are the operator, up to 15,000 meters. So originally it was going to be 3,000 meters. They're going to drill over the next couple of years. Now it's going to be 15,000, and we're really excited about the southern prospect of the license. So outside of the resource zone, which sits in the northeast, there's an area called Carrickittle West, which is this large breccia body fault zone, cross fault zone that was previously identified in exploration programs in 2024, and that the Group 11 CEO refers to one of the best drill prospects in Ireland. So we're happy to get to a point of following up on that and drilling Carrickittle West, where they previously identified a large zone of displacement with mineralization on both sides across that fault, and not quite deep enough with the previous drilling to actually get to the contact with the limestone where mineralization is likely to be found. So yeah, very, very excited about 15,000 meters of drilling. We have an option to participate or to dilute in those programs. Right. So and the way in which that's structured, we essentially could go through a full 15,000 meters without really drawing on our treasury, without sort of any meaningful dilution. So it's a great option to have. It's zinc and lead prices are robust at the moment, and so we're excited about that too.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, zinc, kind of like uranium, is increasingly being seen as strategically important. How do you view the market at the moment? How does Stonepark fit into that broader picture?
So inventories are lower than they've been in years. Prices, have pushed north, and so there's it's a business that's historically been quite cyclic in terms of pricing, and the major use case for zinc is galvanizing steel. Although there are new emerging technologies, particularly around battery technologies in the energy sector, that we think will also create additional demand. And we think that there is much like uranium, that there will be a deficit, at least in the short term, in terms of supply of zinc, and we'll see good, robust pricing. But all of we think the entire industry is in a secular bull market right now, and for particularly the strategic minerals and commodities, which include zinc, there's a really good outlook over the next few years.
Absolutely, yeah, everything's looking pretty strong out there, isn't it? So finally, with activity across both Namibia and Ireland, what are the key things shareholders should be watching for over the coming months, would you say?
So we'll get our results out of Namibia from our geophysics. That's not going to tell us what we have in the ground at that point, but it will guide the next phase of the exploration program and into drilling. It's going to be a very systematic process that we're going through, and fingers crossed that can lead to discovery. So we'll have some news out on Namibia over the next 2 to 3 months in terms of our drill targeting, our initial interpretations, perhaps from some of the geophysical work that we're doing, and anything that work can show us to lead us further towards drilling, and then hopefully drilling in due course. And on Stonepark, it's really going to be about the start of the exploration program, exactly where we're going to drill, and some of the timelines around that.
Great. Well, it sounds like there's a lot going on across the portfolio, plenty of news flow to come. Rory, thanks again for joining us today. And
thanks so much. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.